So my name's Sandbach. The reason why I talked to this group some time ago is that I have a business in Marlborough, and it's a very specialised business, and it's very vague, a brief introduction to that so you know what I'm talking about. We sell very specialised adhesives. The sort of adhesives, you're probably familiar with things like Araldite. Two components, you mix them together. Well, the adhesives I sell are very specialised versions of that same family of adhesives, epoxy adhesives. Except they're not used for mending your bike, they're used for making sensors for cars, they're used for surgical instruments, they're used to replace solder in electronics that goes into orbit, and things like that. So it's very specialised, and because it's so specialised, our customers don't want to buy them and have to mix them together. That introduces too many variables into their process. They want to buy them ready mixed. And you think, well, how does that work if you mix Araldite and it goes off? Well, years ago we found a method of mixing the epoxy together, and if you could freeze it at a cold enough temperature quickly enough, then you could sort of pause the chemical reaction that takes place. And so we have a laboratory next to Tesco's on Salisbury Road in Marlborough, if you've ever been that way. And we have a little laboratory, and we mix these very specialised epoxies together and freeze them, and we package them in exactly the format that our customers want, so that they can take them out of the freezer and use them to make all sorts of things. The list grows and grows every day, I'm happy to say. And of course the challenge is that we have to ship them frozen. So it's a bit like sort of sending frozen fish or something, except we have to send them, and most of our customers are of course in the European Union, because sadly we've forgotten how to make things in this country, and most of the business of people making clever things doesn't take place on this island anymore, sadly to say. So we ship in insulated packages full of dry ice, and in that format we have basically everything was designed to 72 hours before the curing process starts again. So after 72 hours, depending on the product, we might get another 24 hours, but really 72 hours and that's it. The goods are scrap. And because it's very specialised, it's very expensive. So one frozen box, the contents might be worth £10,000. So it's a very good business if you can get the stuff to the customer. So we're still going, I have to say, we are still going, the business is actually growing. But what I think I'm going to talk to you about is what we've had to do to keep the business going, and it's been a lot of work and a lot of challenges. So, first thing, because I'm one of our favourite people, I'm sure we'll all be sending him a Christmas card, and that is Lord Frost. Well, he worked very hard in 2020. They did come up with something which actually helped, which is the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which was signed on Christmas Eve in 2020. It's a very important thing for us because it means that under certain circumstances we can ship free of duty to the European Union, and that's very important because on our products the duty is 6.5%, which adds up. Living in business, if we had to swallow 6.5% of everything we sold, it would be very bad news. So we don't have to do that. So I worked very hard between Christmas and New Year in 2020, because as you know, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement came into force on the 1st of January, and so I didn't get much sleep to do that. Well, so I read the agreement several times and put together various papers and circulated them with my colleagues in Germany and my colleagues in the US to try and figure out if what my interpretation was correct, because no lawyers could possibly tell us at that stage. They haven't read it either. So I learned things like, there's a phrase called max nom, for instance, which is max and then capital letters NOM, and that means maximum non-originating materials. So I had to calculate in all our products we exported. What that basically means is if you sell something that's worth £100, you have to calculate and you have to demonstrate, you have to document this, because it's a legal declaration you have to make. You have to calculate all the non-British items which are used in producing that £100 worth of trade. And so we had to calculate all those, for every product we had to run simulations and whatever, to make sure that we didn't exceed. There's a golden limit of 50%. If your non-originating materials take up more than 50% of what you're selling, then it's not classified as British. So then you would incur duty at import. So we had to do that. Was the first thing we had to do. And there are lots of them. I've got the document put in. You might be interested to see, because this is the kind of thing that every customer, everyone who's exporting to the EU, they have to make a declaration of origin, and they have to have a legal basis to make them. This is the document we came up with to do that. And it's fairly arcane. In our case, it's fairly straightforward because it's all to do with margins and internal costs, and I could demonstrate fairly easily. But we had to demonstrate it. We had to have that on file before we could make a export declaration on the 1st of January or whenever first shipping day was in 2021. So that was the first thing we had to do. It was very unpleasant having to go through all that. And normally I'd have it's the only chance in the whole year when I can actually take some time off in Christmas and New Year, but not in 2020. So thanks for that. Anyway, there are lots of other issues, however. First thing is that prior to, as you probably remember, I had some slides where I showed the before and after effects of Brexit. So if you export goods to the EU within the single market, it's shipping to Barnsley is the same as shipping to Bratislava. It's literally the same thing. You just put a label on it and you ship it. There's no other paperwork. You don't even need to send a delivery note if you don't want to. The customer knows what he's receiving. Just like getting an Amazon delivery. Outside the EU, it's not the same. We have to make a customs declaration for every item that we export. And we do that through our couriers. We use DHL as our couriers. The reason for that is that they have all the facilities for handling frozen goods, and they know how to do that. And they also have a very good network in Germany in particular, which is our primary market. And so that means every shipment we do, and we make, difficult to say exactly, we make between 2,000 and 3,000 shipments a year, frozen shipments, individual shipments. So that's about, whatever, 60 a week, something like that. Which doesn't sound very much, but for each one, we have to fill in all this stuff. And you have to get it right. Get it wrong, goods will be bounced. And if they're bounced to customs, that's it, you've had it. They won't send them back. Well, they might do 3 weeks later, but there's no good. So we estimated that we've got a very, very good team. They're highly motivated and highly qualified, and they really know what they're doing. And we estimate it's around about 5 minutes per shipment that we have to do, in addition to what we used to do on average. And that works out, that's 5 solid work weeks per year. 8:30 to 4:30 hours working time. 5 weeks of work extra per year we're having to do. Which, in the end we actually took on an additional person. We sort of half needed an additional person, but this tipped us over the edge to actually need an additional person. So we've had to cover the cost of an additional person, at least half of one. So that's the first thing we had to do. Second thing we had to do, which we learned very, very quickly, was so dry ice is a very exotic thing. For any of you who don't know what it is, it's solid carbon dioxide. So it's carbon dioxide that's been basically compressed under certain conditions, and it goes from the vapor phase to the solid phase without going through the liquid phase. And it's very, very handy stuff because it's insulating, so it's good. You can put it around something and it'll insulate it. It insulates itself against external heat, so that's good. And it sublimes, so it goes from the solid state to the vapor state back again without going through the liquid state, so it doesn't make anything wet. And it's in equilibrium. It's about -80 degrees centigrade, so it's ideal for low temperature shipping, so perfect. However, as soon as you've got it, it's subliming all the time. So you can't just buy it on Monday and use it on Friday. There wouldn't be any left. And we have to time that when we buy it and when we use it fairly accurately, otherwise we throw it away. It costs around about £3 a kilogram. And to give you an idea, this week, this actual week, we have 1,200 kilograms to do. So what we found we had to do was we had to give ourselves, normally prior to Brexit, we shipped everything on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And that meant that we could have the drive delivered first thing on Tuesday. So it was minimum waste, and we'd use it all on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we could get there by the weekend. And it did. It was very, very reliable. We found out very soon that shipments were taking 3 days, 4 days. It was all over the shop for various reasons. Partly because our counterparts in Europe hadn't had to deal with all this nonsense. They weren't ready for it either. We hadn't had customs controls between the UK and Ireland and Germany for 30 years. All of a sudden we did, so they weren't ready either. They didn't know what they were doing. All their people had retired too. So we had absolute chaos for about 3 months. It was just, we were tracking every shipment and phoning people in depots, saying, can't you move it and whatever. And, it was awful, but what we found was we had to start shipping on Mondays rather than Tuesdays to give us a chance. So that meant we had to have the dry ice delivered on Friday and keep it over the weekend. So I remember we were losing about 40% of it over the weekend. So that's, if you say 1.2 tonnes times £3,000 a tonne times whatever percentage I just said, and that's just lost. Every week we're losing it. From why? So I'm doing a list. There's that list we've been after from all the Brexiteers. Give me a list of benefits. And then starts, well, give me one benefit, vaccine rollout, or passports. Well, I've got a list just in my own company. I've got a list of actual costs that I can document. I've had to document.
Could we have those, please?
I could. Well, I'll give you it now, approximately. So that's the dry ice. So then we have to have it over the weekend. So we've got our dry ice comes in what we call coffins, dry ice coffins. My son called that because he said it'd be an ideal way to get rid of the employees. In coffins. But prior to that, when he was 12, he used to put different tickets in the filing cabinets, and in one of them we found the ticket said it was called the heads of ex-employees. It's his upbringing. So we had the new person change the dry ice shipments, even paper. We have to print so much more paper now. You do 3,000 shipments, and you have another 4 or 6 pages to go with every shipment. We've had to replace printers and you just wouldn't make it up. You really wouldn't. Freight costs, of course. Our friends at DHL, they are our friends. They're excellent. I have to say, for anyone here, there's anyone who works at DHL, give them my regards. But they're doing extra work. They charge extra. So we estimate. It's difficult because prices have all been going up. Because that's COVID. It's the effect of COVID. No, it's supply chains. But actually, we estimate we're paying an extra around about £30,000 a year in freight costs additionally. Freight costs, an average month, DHL bill is about £18,000. So we've got a reasonable sized business, so you expect to pay a lot. But over the year, it's certainly between £20,000 and £30,000 additional freight costs, just because there are extra steps and you have to tick that box, and that's a certain cost. It adds up. The other thing, this is really the most disappointing thing for my team, because they have a really wonderful team. And if any of you ever want to come and see how frozen epoxy is made, please come. We're very, very proud of what we do, and we love showing people around. So please, I'm sure Jane will pass on my contact details to you. As I have a really great team, who work really hard, and they make exquisite products. We are certified and approved by Airbus, by Olympus Medical, by Daimler-Benz, by Leonardo. Everybody you can think of. We get full marks for what we do. We're very proud of it, and we work very hard to achieve that. What absolutely cripples us is we make this exquisite package, or a couple of packages, containing the finest products that we can possibly make, and then they get lost. Just because they're stuck somewhere, because the customer doesn't provide his EORI number at the right moment, or there's a mix-up somewhere in customs. Because customs, I've tried to say in the last several talks, so I don't know if it was this one, customs are not very friendly. Customs are very unpleasant people. To think about, in the days of the pirates, the excise men were the ones with the guns. They're very aggressive, and they really don't care about you. If something gets stuck in customs, you always have the impression they're almost laughing at it. It's just that they're not your friends and they don't want to help. And German customs, they're the same. It's a cultural thing. So if it gets stuck in customs, even if you complain about it, they'll sit on it an extra day. That's just the way it goes. I've learned that to my chagrin over all these years. It's a very tough thing. So we've, since beginning of 21, we've lost around 4 shipments a month. 4 shipments.
At 10,000 each?
Not always. No. And per year, again, it's about the same figure. It's between 20 and 30,000 pounds a year. And we can't recoup it. We can't insure it.
Is that a fairly constant figure, or is that?
It has come down because at the beginning it was terrible. We were losing perhaps 10% of all our shipments were being lost. Now we're just having to make them again and send them again, all at our cost. Significant amounts of money. But the worst thing is our customers, they think we're great in terms of what we deliver. But there's only so many times, if you're let down, they just see the whole package and they say, well, we can't trust those guys in Britain. No matter how good the quality is. And that's the tragedy from my point of view. I'm very proud of what we do and what we've achieved. And we are universally, quality-wise, deliveries, documentation, whatever. We get full marks in all our audits and assessments.
Can I ask where your main competitors are? Are they within the EU? And is that obviously going to be more challenging?
Well, it's a very niche thing.
Yeah.
The reason probably why a lot of them put up with us is that we're the only lab of our kind selling the particular product that we sell. And that's, once it's designed in, it's difficult to change.
Sure.
So there are competitors, but they're not doing exactly what we do. They're selling a slightly different thing. So, so cost-wise, it's in the 60 to 100,000 pounds a year. It's actually costing us, and we can prove that. Obviously, our business has grown in the meantime, so you say, well, why is it still growing? It's because we're really good at what we do, and the customers really like what we do, and we're sort of absorbing a lot of this stuff, so they don't have to deal with it.
What about the strength of the pound and all that, isn't it?
Well, it's helped in a certain way. We export in euros.
Oh, okay.
But we buy most of our raw materials in dollars, so it's kind of, swings around that. So it has helped a bit. But the supply chain issues following COVID and all the, ships being out of place and whatever, has caused us a huge amount of trouble. And then there's some really, really irritating things. So a lot of our customers, because they all have very, very prescriptive methods like we do, because they're all in FDA-approved supply chains or automotive quality systems or whatever. So a lot of our shipments, we actually embed an electronic temperature monitor into the shipment, and then we as part of the warranty process, we ask them to send it back, and then we can download the data. We can say, well, it was within that temperature range for a certain time, and you got it on such and such a date, because they have to press a button on it trying to signify they've got it. And that works fine, except these things cost about £30, £40. It's not much. Customers send them back. They don't know how much they cost. So they say, well, it's quite nifty gadget this. That's probably, 100 euros or whatever. So it comes with customs, it declares 100 euros, duty on it. And plus, it probably costs us every customs entry, that kind of small commercial entry, costs about £150 plus duty. And to the point that actually the courier arrives, because they didn't know. We didn't even know it's coming. They just put it in a jiffy bag and send it, like they used to in the olden days. They just stick it in a jiffy bag, because we used to send out pre-printed jiffy bags. So once you just put it in the jiffy bag and put it in the post.
So, sorry, maybe I didn't quite follow that, but so can you not let your customers know that it's only about £30 or £40 so they don't do the...
They're dealing with these big companies.
Yeah.
They just, this information just never goes to
Just,
It's just some, shipping department, they say we ship this out.
yeah.
That's the way it goes with kind of industrial things.
Yeah.
And some of them are very good and they try. And we've tried figuring ways around it. They say, well, why should we change?
Yeah.
So this worked fine, we've done this for 10 years. And it's been fine. We said, well, we've got to change because we're stupid. That's, that's what I feel like saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not very good on the sector. I imagine you regard yourself as small, high tech, and that must be a significant part of the British economy, particularly
Yes.
in areas such as ours. And I mean, CBI also must gather data on this, and I'm just wondering, this sounds to me as if it ought to be common throughout the country, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have lost a lot of the sort of bigger industrial sectors, but we do specialise. We've got some very, very specialist companies. We are very good at what we do. Technically, we have a lot of expertise, so there are lots and lots of companies who are in similar predicaments. It's just ours is so extreme because of this perishable nature of the goods, and the, this dry ice thing. Can you imagine? But with that predicted order, I knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. I had people, because I got lots of people interviewed me because I did a piece for BBC, the business lunch or something they do. No, Daily Politics. They came to the lab and they did a little piece, and I told them what was going to happen. The person in the studio was none other than Tim Martin. He was one that got. So my piece closed, and there's Tim Martin. I think we've lost. What chance do we stand? Why was I not in the studio? I'm just doing a piece to camera.
Yeah.
Anyway, we used to. This is the thing. We always regarded Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, as a sort of an extension of our home market because of the common travel area and the more or less absence of customs for such a long time. It's part of our sort of stumping ground, really. I don't mean that in any kind of sort of imperialistic way. It's just that's how it works. Always has done between Britain and Ireland. You still don't need a passport to go to Ireland. Whatever they may say, no, you do not have a passport to go to Ireland. You might need one to get on the aeroplane, but you don't need a passport.
Well, I suppose, yes, you could fly to Northern Ireland and then just go across the border anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no requirement.
Not into the Republic, we didn't make one then.
No, I'm just saying after Brexit.
So we have some various bits, we have some sideline businesses connected with the glue, so we sell dinky little dispensers that will put in a drop of glue at the press of a button and all this sort of thing. And we used to just put them in the back of the car and we just do a tour and visit all, because there's lots of medical customers in the Galway area, and we just used to go and see them twice a year and show them what we've got and whatever. You can't do that. You need a thing called ATA card, which allows you to cross frontiers without paying duty. And you have to have this thing registered at the Chamber of Commerce, and you have to go through customs, they have to stamp it and give you counterfoils and whatever. So we've just given up. We just don't want it. It's just not worth it. Even going to, we sent a unit to an exhibition in Galway actually last year, and it cost us nearly £1,000 to arrange the round trip transfer. For this little thing's only worth a couple of pounds in the first place. It's just silly. I mean, to sum up, it is possible to carry on. Thanks to the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, at least there's no duty. If there had been chaotic Brexit, even more chaotic, you might say, who knows? Who knows where it would be? But at least we could trade on a legal basis with our primary market. And so we've done that, but at significant cost and significant stress to